This begins the deliberations for the City Planning Commission hearing on Monday, December 13th, 2021. During deliberations, commission members review cases and take action by voting. There is no participation by applicants or the public. Thanks for joining us.
All right, that being said, we'll get started with case number 1, M005-21-22, 222 and 226 Merchants Road, to amend the zoning map by rezoning properties at 22 and 2226 Merchants Road from R1 Low Density Residential District to C2 Community Center District to facilitate the enlargement of an existing vehicular repair station, which includes the lot combination of subject properties with 218 Merchants Road and a 2,400 square foot building addition and the creation of a 17 space parking lot, an action requiring City Planning Commission recommendation to City Council. Need a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Marlin.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. All right, discussion. Any concerns, any issues?
Seems like a good project that's consistent with the existing or with the adjacent lot. And it's a pretty commercial
Corridor.
yeah, exactly. So consistent and compatible with the present zoning and conforming uses, for sure.
And a longtime business owner.
Yeah, the applicant seems like he knows the business, he knows what he's doing. So yeah.
It does align with 2034 comp plan when you look at the overlay and what this neighborhood's going to be doing, pushing it. I think it was neighborhood mixed use or something like that. I've been bouncing around this thing. Yeah, what is this? It's orange, whatever orange is.
Orange, the new yellow.
Yeah, neighborhood mixed use. So yeah, it's fits with what the game plan is in the future.
All right, any other concerns? Yes, Tom?
I agree with all of that. Just a question for staff. Because there's kind of 2 overhead doors, I think, when the plan is ultimately completed. Does that comply with the special permitted use of 2 bays? Or is there a variance that's going to have to come into place in the future?
Yeah, it's actually, this will be the one and only time that the Planning Commission sees this project. Its next step would go to be to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
This vehicle-related use is non-conforming to the district, so any enlargement of a non-conforming use is going to require a zoning board review.
Okay. And they would take care of the number of bays with that review?
They would take care of the number of bays. They would take care of any parking lot requirement not met or any building design requirement not met.
Okay. Well, I agree with everything everyone said. I think, these 2 parcels are well screened from adjacent residential uses consistent with the comp plan. And I think the basic layout I saw was, I think, respectful of, not putting 7 bays in a row, but rather, bringing those bays inside to minimize the visual impact on the neighborhood. So I thought that was good.
And with the parking out back, or majority of the parking potentially out back as opposed to out front facing Winton, is also another plus. All right, any other comments, any other concerns? All right, are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Tom?
Edda, you got what you need?
I do.
Got what you need, okay.
You guys are good at your job.
All right, so all those in favor of recommending the zoning map at these properties, a recommendation to City Council, all those in favor?
Flower eye.
Aye. Rep. Holtz says aye.
Any opposed? So there should be 6 ayes.
No,
All right, by vote record of 600, the motion passes in the affirmative.
okay.
Great, thank you. All right, now moving on to case number 2. Case number 2, M007-21-22 at 10 and 10.5 Jones Avenue to amend the zoning map by rezoning a property at 10 and 10.5 Jones Avenue from R1 low-density residential district to C2 community center district to facilitate redevelopment of a multifamily dwelling to a mixed-use building, and action requiring city planning commission recommendation to city council. Need a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Harding. Thank you, Mr. Marlin, for second. All right, discussion?
No, we're still giggling over this motion.
That's okay. That's allowed. All right, any concerns, questions? I think it's a good project. I guess the concern that I had was about the fencing along that east side, but they answered the question that they weren't going to put it in. And to me, it makes a little bit of sense, is that it's part of the business next door, so that alleviates having to go around. But I think a good project.
Yeah, and they seem to have enough parking, and there seems to be, even though it's a residential neighborhood, still consistent with at least some of the adjacent properties, are not too overly burdensome for
Right.
the number of folks that they're anticipating to use the office space.
Mhm.
The placemaking plan has the site right at the borders of 3 separate uses, one of which is flexible mixed use. One's going to be staying medium density and one's high density residential. So I think it still fits from a placemaking standpoint with what 2034 wants to do.
Mhm. All right, any other?
Yeah.
concerns? Yeah.
No, I
Mr.
agree.
Nolan? Oh.
No, I agree.
Okay. All right, any other concerns, any other questions?
I mean, one thing you have to factor in here is not limited to just what they've proposed, but like, are the other uses that are permissible
In that district?
in a newly rezoned district all right with you folks?
Yeah, I think to me, it makes sense. I think the kinds of uses that would go in there would be appropriate.
Yeah, and well served by the local, I think they mentioned there's the neighboring bus stop, as well as, again, the parking lot seems to accommodate for most of these uses.
Mhm.
Tom, yeah, that was one of the main reasons I've been checking the placemaking map, is to see, for community center districts, how does that overlay with, I think the most applicable in this particular one is the flexible mixed use, which is, again, it's one of the 3 that are all kind of bordering on each other right on Jones Avenue, literally like right on this site on Jones Avenue. They're all kind of hit together, so.
All right, any other comments? Anna, you got enough info? Okay, all right, we will vote. All those in favor of amending the zoning map at 10 and a half Jones's Avenue, and action requiring city planning commission recommendation to city council. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Marlin,
Aye.
aye.
So we have 6-0-0. Oh, I'm sorry. Any opposed? No opposed?
600, motion passes in the affirmative.
All right, thank you all. All right, and we'll move on to case number 3. This is M-006 21-22 350 Benton Street to amend the zoning map by rezoning property at 350 Benton Street from R1 Low Density Residential District to C1 Neighborhood City Center District to facilitate the establishment of a 20-space parking lot, which includes a lot combination of the subject property with 1012 South Clinton Avenue, and action requiring City Planning Commission recommendation to City Council. Need a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
White. And Mr. Marlin, thank you. All right, a discussion?
I
Yes,
guess
Steve?
just thinking about the, the change in zoning by itself, Benton Street is a, a residential street. And
Mhm.
as soon as you turn the corner, you know and feel that you're on a residential street.
Mhm.
If it wasn't for the fact that this was a brownfields, taking away the ability to infill that, one parcel with a house, would not be something I would support.
Sure.
The fact that it is a brownfield, are there other surface uses that are more residential in character? I think as we look at these two things together, there could be a way to screen the lot and prevent access onto Benton Street and have the outcome of preserving the residential character of the street.
Mhm.
But if you were just to ask me out of the blue, do I think this is a good place for a C1 zone? It doesn't feel like it. It feels like, like I say, you turn the corner and you immediately feel that you're on a residential street. So I know we're going to be talking about both of them together ultimately, but it doesn't feel like the right direction as a standalone question to me.
Mhm. All right, any other comments, any other concerns?
No, I happen to agree too.
It's also, I don't know how much this matters, but it's a really narrow residential street, like, which just kind of, you can understand the concerns.
I think
It was
that's
kind
pretty,
of out of place.
I think that narrowness, I think, is consistent with that part of the neighborhood. A lot of those side streets are that narrow.
Yeah, in fact, that seems to be one of the wider ones from,
Okay.
there was one where like we're both just gonna stare at each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Swilberg, they definitely have branded themselves. It is a walkable community. They interface, with the commercial, there's a lot of great stuff going on there.
Mhm.
I guess a question in terms of logistics, really the zoning recommendation goes to city council.
Mhm.
And then the next case, we're deciding really based on a presumption that the zoning is approved, right?
Mhm.
The zoning change is approved.
Yes.
So I'm assuming there can be some kind of a condition there, but it feels like it needs some kind of explanation to city council, that we've potentially already made a decision about a special permit based on the presumption that the zoning change will be
Agreed upon.
ratified. Yeah.
That seems like an easy condition though, right? Like conditional upon the zoning board approval. Then if we
Condition
decide.
on council approving the rezoning, we're making the special permit conditional on
Council approval.
council approval of the rezoning. Or Kim, are you saying a condition in the other direction?
Well, is it, that's the zoning council? The council has to approve the zoning?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then yes, I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
Aren't we here because we couldn't see this case last time?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how come they came together.
Yes.
It seemed like a really smart idea when I proposed it last time. Now I see why we don't do it this way.
It was very creative and
Yeah, it was a whale.
given the exigent circumstances.
Yeah.
Yes. It's good decision.
Exigent being Zoom screwing up.
Yeah.
As does it then make sense maybe to have a little bit of discussion about the special permit before we make a final decision on the zoning, or do we really have to think about
We don't
the
have to do
zoning?
it in order. You can have a free form conversation.
No, we can talk about that.
Well, we're doing them separately anyway, right?
We're
Like,
gonna
not
do them
voting on that
separately.
together.
And Tom and I are super skilled at weeding things out, but feel free to talk
Yeah.
freely and then we
Yeah,
can.
So,
I mean,
I
I
guess-
could imagine that there would be factors that even if it's, you decide you need more information on this, on the special permit application that might give you pause or even a recommendation to council, like, hey, maybe the zoning map amendment should await some additional information too. Yeah, so I
guess-
see what you mean. They are very interrelated.
I mean, for me, speaking for myself, if I were asked the question today, the zoning map amendment, would I support it? A recommendation given, a commercial vehicular egress and exit on Benton, that would be enough for me to say, no, that's really taking, a residential street away from its residential character. And I would, go through the standards, of course, but it certainly gives me pause. But could there be a design within the special permit that preserves, the more residential character with an appropriate setback, appropriate screening, no egress or ingress onto Benton? I think there could be. And the fact that, this is a brownfield site and excavation into it is a hardship. It's got to be some kind of surface improvement. Either it stays vacant for a long, long time until the brownfield is taken care of, or something at the surface happens.
Mhm.
So it feels it's unfortunate, that it's like the brownfield is the justification for a zoning change, which then, takes away from the residential character of the neighborhood. So then I circle back around to the special permit and say, well, what can we do to mitigate that? Could there be something within the design? And I think it would involve fewer parking spaces. I think in my mind, it would involve eliminating any vehicular traffic into and out of that. Because I think even if you made it one way, people would still go both ways. I mean, it's going to be a problem from Clinton. People are going to be turning into that, even with a sign. People are going to turn in from Clinton. So I think really 2 ways from Clinton is the way to go. And I would like to. I favor the elimination of any curb cut on Benton. And an appropriate screening, really, to keep a front yard setback and keep an appropriate screening between the parking and the residential character of the neighborhood. I mean, it's all speaking for myself. So putting them both together, if you were just to ask me with the proposal on the table, would I support the zoning amendment or recommendation to council? I hesitate. I'm not convinced, right?
Mhm.
Whatever you want to say before the vote happens. But if you put them all together and somehow mitigate the negative impact or the potential negative impact to the residential character of Benton Street and the walkability of Benton Street and all of that, I think there's possibility here.
The other piece that gives me pause, and Steve, you picked up on this and hammered it pretty well in the hearing, but the demand for 20 spaces, that demand is not entirely clear. And it seems a little bit like we're doing the zoning map amendment to do the special permit to accommodate 20 spaces for a parking demand analysis that we haven't seen. That, we could consider an alternative parking plan should those come before us. And given the walkability of this neighborhood, they could generate, more. We would probably allocate more spaces for that than we might in other areas of the city. But kind of jamming this 20 spaces just because we're told that's what they need, based purely on speculation and applications that we haven't seen, seems a little, seems to support your position, I would say.
Any other comments? Well, let me speak up. I think I would support a recommendation for the changing of the zoning. However, I would want to see a limited entrance only on Benton Street. To me, that would help mitigate the problem of it being in a C, we're talking about C1? C1 in an R1 area. That would mitigate some of that. I would not support a two-way in and out, even though people might go in and out. Again, that's on them. But if we say, you only have one way in, one way out, I would really be in support of that. Anyone else? Any other concerns?
I don't see how the one way in or out would be enforceable or even legible, right? If I'm approaching this business, I'm, more than likely on South Clinton. And I'm probably making my turn before I even see the sign that says don't turn in here. And how would I know to go around the corner unless maybe there's another bigger sign that says parking around the corner? And that's just steering more people onto a residential street, which I think is contrary to the walkability and the potential for maintaining that character on Benton.
Just to play devil's advocate, it's my understanding that this is like almost a private parking lot, so it's not necessarily a community lot. It's intended to serve his tenants. So I'm not, I don't want to, I want you to keep on with your train of thought. I just want to make sure that I just want it to also be factored in that it might potentially, the users might be familiar with the operation or the function of the site.
Well, what are the tenants? It sounds like they're commercial operations where, general public is coming to a pizza parlor or a restaurant or a shop of some kind, right? So even though it's not a municipal lot, it's not like a residential lot where everyone has an assigned parking space and I know this is my space and this is how I get in and this is how I get out. It feels like it's going to be frequented by people that need to use the business.
I just had a thought that could you do this via, so if you had ancillary park without doing rezoning and you just did a ancillary parking special permit. The problem is that this lot where the ancillary parking would be is in residential. There's no special permit option in a residential. I know you'd have to get a waiver because it would be when you have ancillary parking in a residential serving a commercial zone, but that would just be a waiver.
But doesn't that leave us with the same issue that we might be okay with the rezoning, but we don't love the special permit for these 20 spaces?
Well, it would make things easier because you can recommend to council, you don't need to do a zoning amendment. We just need to get a special permit application that addresses the issues we need addressed.
Yeah, I mean, supporting the rezoning, as I kind of said at the beginning, I don't support it just as a standalone question. The only reason it seems like a good idea is because the site is a brownfield and it needs some kind of surface improvement, and parking would be a reasonable improvement. But if we were just to say rezone it and any of these things can happen here now, you could build a daycare center or a public and semi-public uses, retail sales, all of those things don't really fit in that single parcel.
I guess maybe I don't know that I agree with that so much. It is a little bit an extension of the C1 kind of coming off of South Clinton, that while Benton is certainly more of a residential street, right on the corner there, you have a business, and it's not ideal, but if a daycare went in there, it wouldn't be, it doesn't seem to me to be that obtrusive, and it would be a little, it's kind of which zoning are you extending or which zone are you extending or preserving?
But I mean, part of this idea is it's not really about the type of, the brownfield problem is causing them like that. They only have one really valid option is for a parking lot. And so without rezoning, you can do a special permit for ancillary parking lot in R1. I just looked it up. And then you could waive, if it's serving some properties that are in the C2, you could do that waiver that you guys have done before. And that way it would be very focused on the issue that's the problem here, that you're basically stuck with putting parking and or just parking and landscaping. So
I mean,
then you could go say with their special permit application, go back and address the issues, the questions that Kim and Steve and others have raised about, what is your parking demand?
Show us.
Commercially, and is there a basis for us to do an alternative parking plan to reduce that so that you could have one way or no way access on Benton Street and the other issues that you raised.
Anna, you had a question?
Yeah, maybe, well, I mean, maybe we could take a vote, or I don't know, but like
Or
we could
straw
vote on
poll
this.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Do the zoning
Yeah.
map amendment or something, but go back to them to say that maybe they don't need to pursue it because our special permit standards would be the same. Well, I guess we'd be looking at it from a different perspective and whether it's consistent. The standard might change a little bit, but
And again, historically, we have made recommendations to city council based upon our vote and with conditions or with concerns that we have about the application. And this is a case in which we could do that. That we could say, we got this application for rezoning, and we feel that the application may be inappropriate for this site due to the brownfield issues, and maybe a special permit may be more appropriate that and an alternative parking plan, and we would recommend that the council consider that, along with our decision.
Wait, I'm very confused.
Mhm.
If you guys don't want to rezone the land, you instead want them to apply for a special permit in the R1 district,
Is an ancillary parking.
but then it would be two properties. Like you would have one operation spanning two property lines with like laterals because of their stormwater infrastructure they're proposing. It would be like the plumbing lines would be crossing two property lines. So I think the reason why they want to have the zoning map amendment so they can combine the
By
land,
the properties.
and then you're not going to have a parking space split across property lines.
Well, so what is it that right now only one lot needs to be rezoned because the other one that they're using for parking is already C1? Is that what?
Yeah, let me pull up the maps and maybe we can get a better
Yeah.
sense.
I think that's
Because I
right.
think you could handle that issue by making it like conditional on a deed restriction and easement between the two lots.
I just feel like I know that this is selfish, but I'm thinking about how I would do a building permit for that. And like with our records, like having one parking lot. I mean, I mean, just thinking about doing one building permit with one parcel for one parking lot rather than, I don't know. I guess it's not, I'm not,
So the driving force behind the zoning change, it sounds like, is the re-subdivision.
yeah,
The
Yeah.
lots are going to be combined. In order for them to be combined, they have to change the zone. But can a rezoning of a standalone lot, 350, right? I mean, can it be conditioned upon executing that subdivision?
Yeah, yeah,
So
I
can
mean,
you guys-
I understand you
Accommodate.
can't, like combine two lots that have different zoning. But do you have to? Like, could you just have two lots that by deed restriction or whatever are both devoted to zoning?
can we reverse engineer this a little bit? So what is the what's the reason why we don't want 350 to be C1?
So I'll just speak for myself. When I look down the list, I see bars, restaurants, retail sales.
Mhm.
And again, if you're asking me, is that the right space for those things? If those things are oriented to South Clinton, sure. But if
I
they're
don't know,
oriented
residential.
to Benton, I would say no.
Yeah,
So
we do
really
have we do have special knowledge in this instance that it's a brownfield site, which really severely limits. So
right.
Yeah,
I sent messaging to you all where it's like, hey, here's the district uses list, and also here's the seeker information where it says this really can't be anything else. So there are.
yeah, I mean, we agreed up front that the whole thing this is only useful for a vacant lot or parking. Like, it's understood that the brownfield issue turns it into the only use that you can't have residential use. So the only use of it is used for parking. And if that's the case, then
Yeah, so
That's
I
you need to rezone.
support the rezoning for the purpose of combining the lot
Yes.
and using it for parking. So that, so it becomes a little bit of a circular logic thing, but I could certainly.
I don't
that
think,
condition.
I don't think legally you're precluded from approving a parking lot just because that extends across two lots. Like, I don't think it's a necessity to have a re-subdivision to combine two lots, both of which are going to be used for parking for the same facilities.
But I do see a logic in it, as Anna said, Tom, if there's going to be, utilities crossing, now there's just a lot of.
Yeah, but we're not going to have utilities here. Part of the premise of this thing is you're not going to be digging up both these Superfund
really?
So
sites.
they are providing stormwater management systems. They are providing stormwater management systems. And I don't know, I mean, fencing isn't a big deal, but there would be some things, and even like parking spaces crossing property lines, maybe. So here's the boundary as it stands today. This area right here is 350.
Mhm. So there'd be a driveway easement, there'd be the parking easements, there'd be maneuvering easements if you kept them as separate properties. So I do see that, 30 years from now, it's going to be a lot cleaner if it's one parcel rather than two.
But also, yeah. I mean, it seems like the application before us, they want to rezone it. So the question is, should they be permitted to rezone? And if the answer is no, maybe they can come back for a special permit, but in the R1, but it seems a little like we're in a philosophical discussion.
Because if they come back and if it's not rezoned, then you still have two pieces of property that are separate. And again, with looking at the easements on that,
Right.
on the one side, those are issues and concerns.
Yeah, it seems that they seem to have, or based on what Anna has said, it does seem to make good sense.
So how do, I guess the folks feel about that? Any vehicle egress or exit on Benton?
I guess I would prefer entrance only, not exit on Benton. On Benton.
Isn't that the proposal that it's just?
No, I think they were
No, it
looking
is
at
both
both.
then?
I think they were looking at potentially both entrance,
Oh, that's
entering
right,
and
that's
exiting
right.
onto Benton. And then, to me, that's too much.
Yeah, I agree with that, certainly. I think the question, from my perspective, that's like off the table, and the question is, do you allow any?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I said the only question is, do you allow any or do you allow none? Do you allow
Oh.
one or none?
Yep. Okay, tough questions. All right.
So for me, I mean, this
Yes.
again is all related. I'm on the none side of that. And if the proposal was even, entrance only, I wouldn't be supporting either, but I wouldn't be supporting the rezoning.
Okay.
And maybe that's fine. I mean, that's why there's lots of people on the commission to make that decision.
Mhm. All right. Any other concerns? And then we'll have to see how we want to construct our vote with recommendations or without recommendations to city council. So.
Well, I mean, you have to do recommendation one way or another.
Yes, understand. Yep. Either
Approve, disapprove, or
approve with
approve with
conditions.
conditions, yeah.
Mhm. So just take a minute to think about how you would want to do that, and then we'll try to put together a motion.
I mean, the problem is that the council's really, they just have no go. Like they don't have the authority to say only if it's approved for this use. That's spot zoning, and
Mhm.
they can't do that.
Right.
So that's our problem, is that they just have go or no go. And then
But isn't this effectively spot zoning?
No,
No, because you're combining it.
Because you're combining two
You're
properties.
combining it.
yeah.
But the one is already zoned that way, so we're only looking at the one parcel
Yeah,
and it can only
I'm-
be used for one purpose.
But it has to be used as one purpose because it's being combined.
It's combined.
Yeah, trust me, it's not,
It's not a
Well,
standalone.
I
like
get
one
that.
of the things that I learned to my great dismay when I was representing some NIMBYs when I was at Exit is that spot zoning is not spot zoning just because you have one parcel.
No, I agree, but
yeah.
I'm saying for the purpose, like, I mean, there's only one purpose that they can use it for. So we're really looking at it from a purpose perspective of, will we rezone it for that one specific purpose? Not that it's just one lot.
Well, again, we're rezoning it for one purpose, to be able to combine the two parcels.
Mhm.
Right.
So to keep the zoning consistent. And then once it's consistent, then what they do with it is a second issue.
I mean, that's why I think like the cart's leading the horse or the tail's
Right.
leading the dog. And you do point out, Kim, that in this case, just because of reality, there's just one possible use of this site, but it's the same whatever zone it is. And I mean, I think there's a way to do it that just have it by special permit, keeping the zoning as R1 and having some easements and stuff, cross easements across the two lots. We've done that with this board with regard to the parking arrangement on McCree Street.
Samuel McQueen, right?
And then that's solving the problem of having to say, like, hold your nose and like go to council, like, yeah, we recommend this, but really not.
But isn't it the same thing? Because it's based on the use. Unless we hope that sometime down the road, 100 years from now, that property is clean and it stays an R1. I mean, it's the same thing. I don't think it matters, what we have in our hands is this situation. And unless we want to wait for it to remedy itself, for somebody has the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes to my point. If you don't rezone it, then that's good. It leaves you the flexibility later on if that parcel's only possible use is no longer just for parking lot, but could be used for residential, then you already have the relevant zoning to do that. Right now, you have the relevant zoning to do by special permit ancillary parking. And if you also have the relevant zoning if the by biodegradation stuff, the contamination resolves itself, which happens, then you could put a residential property back on there.
Anna, quick question. If we were to determine that, or not determine, to decide that we would not recommend the rezoning of this property, would a special use permit be able to allow them to get parking on that site?
I guess it would add an additional waiver, right, Tom? Because there's the current waiver of 131 that it has to be in the same zoning district or a less restrictive one.
Right.
So I don't know if I could, I don't know if it's legit. I guess I can't do a code review.
Yeah,
tonight.
you can do a waiver. I mean, we've done those all the time where a lower zoning district, ancillary parking like in an R is supporting a use in a C1.
Let me just look at the plans then, because if this is my new property line, I guess I wouldn't have to worry about setbacks requirements because the easement, it would be, while there might only be 11 feet on this property, they do in fact have 24. But then if this were sold, then this doesn't meet the drive aisle width.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you'd have to do it by easements.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of,
The
it's
deed
kind of like what
restrictions.
is happening on South Clinton. You know, this property owner is putting bollards down the middle of his lot
Yeah.
when there had been kind of probably a handshake for many years where they would share that point. So I guess I'm a little uneasy about maintaining two separate parcels. It feels like having this under one control would be better. So for that reason, the zoning change does make sense. Really, the thing that I'm, I guess, most uneasy about, I guess more than uneasy, is the commercial driveway on Benton Street. And I think this lot could be, you know, a very successful lot screened from the neighborhood and accessed from Clinton.
So could we
With a
pivot
few fewer cars? Yeah.
for the sake of tonight's conversation?
Mhm.
Let's table that, resume that conversation, and let's kind of discuss what Steve is conceptualizing here, where there is no Benton curb cut and the configuration here is changed, where we have the appropriate two-way enter exit here, and then maybe these become parallel, or what do you see?
Yeah,
Two-way-
those
two-way
diagonal
traffic.
spaces would need to become parallel, and then you would have the 22-foot in and out there.
Or
And the number of
could-
spaces would reduce.
or they could utilize, they wouldn't have to widen this. Maybe they remove these bollards and then give us evidence of an access agreement that there could be a 24, an aisle here.
And again, another idea too would be to eliminate all those parking spots along that side, which would be 6, and make that, again, as Steve was saying, two-way in and out, only on off of South Clinton, nothing off of Benton. I mean, I would think that would be more reasonable. Again, that reduces the number of spots that they're requesting, even though we don't know that the 20 is appropriate anyway. So we say, well, we'll give you your parking in the back, but make it two-way in and out with nothing going in and out on Benton. I would support that.
Do the people in this group feel more passionate about not having a commercial curb cut on Benton Street, or do they feel more passionate about having 350 Benton not be C2?
Curb cut for me.
Curb
Yeah,
cut for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
that's-
care about
that's-
the zoning.
3
that's the
curb
curb cut
cuts,
for me. Yeah.
a
Curb cut.
shaking of the head. Milton?
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
Okay, cool.
Curb cut.
So so let's talk about this then. So let's pretend that this is going to get redesigned now. Steve, I just want to pick your design
Yeah.
professional brain. Do you think it's more realistic to expand this curb cut more than they're proposing, or just to provide evidence of an access easement and utilize this large drive aisle that's currently in existence?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of an access easement, but the fact that they haven't proposed it suggests to me that
Yeah.
maybe they're not on good terms with the neighbor.
Mm.
So
I
then
think you
with
gotta
that, I would
have-
go- Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know, I think you can get a wide enough in and out there if they still want the bollards because they don't want the share with the neighbor. And it would mean reducing the number of spaces. You'd probably have 3 parallel spaces adjacent, you know, to the building. And then you'd need to be able to go in and turn around and leave, right? So there have to be some adjustments. I mean, they'd probably lose a bunch of spaces.
But again, there's no verification that they need all those spaces.
And the way I'm visualizing this, correct me if I'm wrong, is now this is a recommended approval for the zoning map amendment, and you're holding the site plan application and you want to see a revised site plan
Yes.
based on like these substantial material changes. It
Yes.
sounds like you wouldn't be able to approve anything without a second revision.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
there's a bunch of things that I made a list during our break that the parking demand study, like what what they are anticipating will be the uses that will be served and how much the demand is commercially or, traffic engineer wise. Then ask them to do an analysis or consult with you and then do an analysis of how much of existing deficiency exists so that they could figure out the legal requirement. And then also address like what the relationship is to that property next door on the other side of the bollards.
Yeah.
And then also address DES requirements about how wide or narrow curb cuts can be.
Yeah.
And then what else I see here, right?
DS conversation is going to be key.
No, because
Yeah.
again, if the curb cut on Benton is what they're looking at right now, that would be the same as the curb cut up front if they use the whole width of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be what, 22 feet or something. I can't remember what that distance is, but it would be about the same. So you could get in and out traffic off of South Clinton without any problem.
And certainly cooperative parking arrangements are encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the bollards are kind of contrary to that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But again, I think, if they were able to open up that whole width to in and out traffic, that would make the point of the bollards almost moot.
Okay. So I'm going to just repeat everything and then you guys can add in when I forget things. But in terms of the map amendment, you would be recommending approval. In terms of the special permit, you'd be holding it and you would say that you are not amenable to the Benton curb cut. And in fact, you want to redesign, which would eliminate the diagonal parking and potentially introduce parallel parking and providing a two-way drive aisle on South Clinton Ave.
Yes.
And as part of that, we also have to ask for the parking demand analysis.
Yep. And you guys want to see a parking demand analysis. I'll add that in the hold letter.
And the DES curb cut width requirements.
Okay.
Yeah. And if they share the access aisle, they might be able to get some perpendicular parking.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, and I do agree with the logic of combining the lots.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want to be the only voice on the curb cut on Benton, but it just feels like it's taking what is a very interesting street,
and converting it.
Very well, lived in and walkable to a lot of cool stuff around there, river stride and all that, kind of disintegrating it a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now, based upon what Anna has suggested for us, we need to vote to approve or recommend zoning map change to this property to City Council with the information that we have, or conditions that we have. Not conditions.
Just recommending approval, right?
Recommendations.
Based on observations. You've made.
Observations, okay?
Yeah.
And then we'll vote on case number 4, the site plan, to hold on that until we get additional information based upon the comments that we provided. Okay? All right, so the first vote will be voting to recommend City Council that they rezone the property at 350 Benton to C1 Neighborhood District. All those in favor with the recommendations that we had, all those in favor?
So just remind
go ahead,
me,
Steve.
what would those conditions be for the rezoning? Are there conditions on the rezoning?
There's not conditions, there's just the observations that have been made.
Observations.
Observations
Okay, got it.
that we had about Benton side and the easement and all those things. All right, all those
The combining of the lots.
combining them, yes. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, 6-0 and opposed. I want to make sure I get those in. Nobody opposed. All right, so we got 6-0-0.
So by a vote of 600, you're recommending the approval of the proposed zoning map amendment to city council.
Yes,
Yes.
with concerns indicated.
With, yeah,
All right, and then now case 4, this is the special permit on the parking. So we're gonna hold this over until we get the additional information that was addressed by Anna, the traffic analysis, all the other 3 things that we had. Anna, you want to read those?
So it's my understanding that you're about to vote to hold the application. You're holding it because you are not in favor of the Benton, the curb cut, the commercial
Yes.
curb cut in the residential street, and you'd like a revised site plan that either incorporates an access agreement with the neighboring property or an expanded curb cut on the subject property itself, and you want additional information such as the parking demand analysis and information from the DES permit office on their curb cut size requirements.
Yes.
yes.
I think
All
you
right,
need to
everybody.
vote, though, to
All right,
vote to
everybody.
approve.
I would add to that, landscape and screening treatment along Benton,
Yes,
to preserve or to, support.
support the character of the neighborhood.
Okay,
All right,
All right.
all right, everybody okay with that? Understand?
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor of holding case number 4 with the conditions and recommendations that we have, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we got 600 again. Also opposed? Thank you.
You can't call the vote before you ask the people.
It's part of his charm. Tom.
Except the Politburo.
You got that, Anna?
I do, and I appreciate you.
All right, and we have the next 2 cases, and both which of Steve and Kim have need to recuse themselves. Is that
Not
correct?
yet.
Oh, not yet?
We're okay. We're okay on 5.
Oh, you both stay on 5. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trying to get rid of you too soon.
I mean, you're speaking my language tonight.
Okay, case number 5, 36 Council Street to establish an indoor storage at 36 Council Street to preserve Remar steel manufacturing located in adjacent parcels 432 and 464 Portland Avenue. An action requiring City Planning Commission approval. A motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Flower. Thank you, Ms. Harding. All right, discussion. I think, Steve, you got your issues concerned or just about the setback.
Just how does this work when they haven't presented the plan yet? We just kind of note those conditions and then they
we can-
present a plan to
We
staff?
can, maybe, we can add those to our decision. Ensuring that there's a minimum of 10 feet setback on both sides of the adjacent properties. So that the separation would start at least 10 feet from the property line.
So
Is
you're
that right,
talking
Anna?
about the fence,
fence,
having,
yes.
being 10 feet further back and having,
Well,
some landscaping, but
the fence would have to be further than 10 feet because if they're putting in plants, they have to be within their own property line. Oh, well, 10 feet is.
No, 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so would that work for you, Steve? Basically, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think, if the fence moves back, if the landscaping is on the Council Street side of the fence.
Yeah.
And then if they can get some breathing room between the house and the fence, and I don't know that it has to be 10 feet. And I don't know exactly how it would want to be landscaped. So that's where I think, someone looking at that, if you just put a bunch of arborvitae against the guy's window, that may not be as.
What's their, let me pull up the staff report now, and then we can look at their plan and see what let me just go straight to the horse's mouth. Alrighty. Here's their landscaping plan. It's not gonna have the setback dimensions. So right now they're proposing a 10-foot wrought iron wall with these arborvitae.
Yeah.
The landscape architect said, I don't feel comfortable with you exclusively planting arborvitae because if one fails, they'll all fail. Like if they all fail, then you're kind of screwed.
Like
So the
down
land,
Let me ask you, is that our landscaping consultant or theirs?
yes,
or-
that was a comment accepted through the site plan review process, and the applicant has says that they'll incorporate into their final
Okay.
drawings.
So like we could make a condition that says, that satisfies the
Right.
landscape
you don't make
architect's
that-
comment.
If you don't make that condition here tonight, the site plan review, the manager of zoning is going to make that a condition of their site plan review. So that landscape architect comment, as it was accepted through site plan review, will be a condition of the site plan review approval itself. I guess I was just providing
Yeah.
all the
Right.
information in the world on this one.
You don't
Yeah.
want to leave it up to, I mean, if that's a condition that's necessary to this approval of a
Okay.
special permit, then it should be.
Okay, no
we
problem.
shouldn't- Yeah.
So help me, I know that the applicant said we're moving the fence
10 feet.
10 feet back so that
Mhm.
like when you're walking on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Right.
What I'm unclear about is that fence going to be along this property line?
No,
Or- So they're
Well,
moving
that's
the
what-
fence back.
That's what I was
Doesn't sound like
asking,
it.
for the fence to be moved away from, because that house is just a couple feet from the property line.
So
and a
maybe
10-foot tall fence, yeah.
I think that they were only proposing it on council. So maybe it's the wrought iron fence has to be on the other side of the arborvitae on the abutting residential properties.
Right.
I mean, I heard them during the presentation is saying the 10-foot fence would be facing both Council
Both
Street
residents.
and that property.
that's,
and the
that,
residents.
so did I.
But yeah.
And Steve is concerned about this bedroom window looking at a 10-foot wrought iron fence.
Yeah, but if it's moved 10 feet further away from the property line, that's going to reduce that impact.
The adverse impact, yeah, the mitigating measure being that there's like a landscaping buffer.
Yes. So again, to me, if they're going to basically move what they have here, the fence and the vegetation back 10 feet, then it should be 10 feet from the property line where the vegetation starts, and the fence would be another 2 feet, beyond that.
No, they're, if I understand correctly, they're proposing to leave the vegetation where it is and just put the fence on the inside rather
That's
than
correct.
the outside.
Right.
And
That is
that
correct.
makes sense to me. That
Oh,
That makes sense.
I support
Okay,
that.
I thought they were moving everything back 10 feet.
That's not what I heard. So that, I mean, that's where, if they had the plan, we could certainly know what they
Oh,
had.
sure. Sure.
But I think if the fence is 10
10
feet
feet.
back from the property line and the landscaping is outboard of that,
Mhm.
Right.
right? In front of the fence along Council Street. So that particular first condition describes the fence 10 feet back, but the landscaping basically staying where it is.
And then since we're talking
then-
about, oh, I'm sorry, I don't let you finish.
Yeah, no, and then putting in those trees, interspacing those trees to break up the arborvitae.
Mhm.
Made sense to me too.
And just while we're on this topic, technically so they are seeking a waiver for the front yard setback. So the front yard being this,
Mhm.
the council arborvitae plus the new trees they're planting.
Mhm.
The front yard setback in this area is 14 feet. That's the average of all the residential houses on the street. So you can kind of see this neighbor is probably like 16, 20 feet back. And so the average is 14 feet. So they're asking you to be 4 feet closer than the average, just so you know that that's one of the things before you tonight.
And
Yeah, I
that's,
don't-
we have to have findings on those waivers too, like of what specific circumstances here justify waivers.
And then maybe that's a good segue into looking at like the proposed use itself, the site plan. Let's look how that site functions that would require, is maximizing amount of space as possible for their outdoor storage activities. Which they kind of just create a blanket area. They've given you 2 examples of what storage containers look like.
Mhm.
And then they've kind of just created a box that they say, we're gonna have other storage items, equipment, unfinished and finished steel product and trailers.
Mhm.
And
I'm gonna go to
it-
the findings where, oh, I keep cutting you off, but I'm
No,
gonna go
no,
to
no. I was gonna say what they described, it's gonna change daily and weekly.
yeah.
With steel coming in and steel going out.
Mhm.
The manufacturing use and the expansion of that manufacturing use, we're very fortunate to have a viable business there. You know, that use being oriented to Portland, right? In making use of this space, you know, it all makes sense with appropriate screening and appropriate
Mhm.
setbacks.
The stage storage of processed steel, storage of production materials awaiting transport, processed steel on flatbed trailers. That was what they did at the other location, in containers, on the ground on pallets. No late night loading operations.
Yep.
So I mean, to Tom's point, I mean, I would imagine in terms of examining the setback that this may be why they're asking for an additional 4 feet here. But I'll leave that up to you all.
You know, and again, I think they have plenty of room, basically, you know, to be able to move the storage containers or move the other equipment where they need it if there are issues or concerns that, you know, that may come up.
I guess I would just suggest that they need the room. They need the
Oh,
room. This is a large manufacturing operation
They need
supporting,
big trucks.
you know, this community, this, you know, having, you know, jobs in the area, and they need that room. It's landlocked, and they put together a plan that allowed them to expand here in the city of Rochester, and that plan is based on having that room. So I certainly 10 feet rather than 14 feet is, I think, reasonable and supportable by the amount of space they need. If they were out in the, you know,
Suburbs,
on 490 somewhere, they'd have a lot more room.
400
I think
feet.
yeah, we want to give them the room they need.
Mhm.
The next waiver they're seeking is being abutting a residential property, and it looks like you guys have already started kind of examining that impact and proposing and mitigating measures such as having the landscaping first and then the fencing itself.
And further back. Okay.
After that, we have the height of its fence. So when you're near a residential, the max is going to be 8 feet, or well, in industrial, the max is 8 feet. They're proposing 10 feet.
And I think go ahead.
I will say that the maximum height of the items that they're storing is 10 feet. So not to exceed.
Right. And they talked too about some concerns with security.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Seemed
I think-
reasonable.
They've already established 10 feet perimeter fencing as their standard.
Initial,
It's already established in the neighborhood.
And to be able to
They're
continue
extending
that.
that.
Mhm.
And I certainly believe that, you know, with the scrap value of steel, lots of people would love to get in there and get it. So
Right.
having a robust fence makes sense to me.
To keep people from getting in potentially and getting it back over 10 feet is, I think, is the minimum. All right,
Okay,
Andy,
cool.
you got that, Anna?
I do.
Okay.
And the last one is, it looks like there's a 3-foot decorative requirement, and they're asking for this 10-foot steel one. But I think this might include the same justification as you
Yes.
just talked about.
That's great.
Okay, thanks for taking me down the waivers.
Yeah,
I'll let
no
you
sweat.
resume your discussion.
Okay, all right, any other concerns? I think a good project, makes a lot of sense. Then we got the issues of the residential setbacks, or not residential setback, but the property adjacent to the residential areas taken care of. 10-foot high fence makes sense, security, justifiable, good company. I think good project. Any other concerns? All right, so ready to vote to establish an outdoor storage at 36 Council Street to serve Bremer Steel, and actually requiring City Planning Commission approval. All right, all those in favor?
Wait, before you
Oh,
vote,
yes.
so you're approving this on condition that they put
Yes.
this, okay, great. Now you can vote.
With conditions and everything with the
Yep.
site plan review.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor? Aye,
I
opposed? None. 6-0-0 again.
All right, by a vote of 6-0-0, it's approved on condition. Condition being that landscaping first, then the fencing.
Fence 10 feet from the property line. Okay. All right. Now I can let Ms. Harding and Mr. Ropeholtz go. Thank you guys so
Thank you
much.
all.
Appreciate
Thank you,
you.
and
Have a good holiday.
Happy New Year,
Likewise.
everyone.
Be
We'll see
safe.
you
We'll see you next
next
year.
year.
In next year, yes. All right. All right, we have one final case. Case number 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we ready, Anna?
We're good. Yep,
Okay,
I'm ready for you.
no problem. Case number 6, 444 Thurston Road, E-011-21-22. To continue temporary 24-month, 13th space ancillary parking to serve a 48 Union apartment building at 447 Thurston Road. An action requiring City Planning Commission approval. A motion?
I'm moved.
I'm moving.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, discussion. Concerns?
I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
It's gonna be temporary anyway.
Mhm.
Right.
Parking is gonna go away as soon as they get the funding.
Yep,
So if you can mitigate the space so that the tenants have some place to park, that's fine.
mhm. No, and you're gonna think, as Brad was saying, we're not gonna beat them up because it's not our place to beat them up. But again, I think, if somebody dropped the ball when they didn't take a look at the fence that they put in and the setbacks. So
Right.
I'm not gonna beat them up and say remove it because it
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we should support good businesses, good companies, and that are doing a good job in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, and it's temporary anyway. It's gonna
Yes.
go away, so.
Yep. I think I should be saying, he could plant the trees tomorrow and then pull them out next week if they if they get their funding. All right, so
I do very much appreciate Brad's comment about
sure.
just kind of like the acknowledgement, because I think this temporary lot has not made provisions for stormwater management, and a landscaping buffer would have accommodated that slightly. So I
Yeah.
think it isn't a light issue, but I
Mhm.
also think that you guys outweigh the argument with your acknowledgement of the long-term goal and plan here. But it is important. Parking lots are not just striping and paving, they are
Right.
an engineering feat.
Mhm. And they're a critical part of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Because the more you put in, the more neighbors and visitors see them and are using them or part of them. So makes sense. All right, any other discussion, any other concerns? Yeah.
Just a small additional piece of just reflection and feedback. I mean, well, I know home leasing does a bunch. They do a bunch. The quality of what they're doing, the population that they're serving with their affordability in housing, all these things are good things. And at the same time, this isn't to sway anybody's opinion, but in terms of if they're not going to follow through with the rules, who is going to follow through with the rules? I just want to I just want to say it one more time. So I get it. I get it in this case, especially if this were another parking lot that was known, maybe not another plan. I think this is where we have the teeth to be you're not going to get it approved unless you actually fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, the other thing too, I think that it's critical that I think we understand that there are factors in our decision.
Yeah.
And, we're willing to know when we drop the ball. And we also know that historically, enforcement has been an issue.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think someplace along the chain, that enforcement piece was overlooked. So, we're not shooting the messenger. We're saying this is what it is.
I've got to disagree with you a little bit about it's not on enforcement.
Right.
They did a bad, this applicant, by not abiding by the site plan that it was given,
Can that be included in the language of the extension?
Pardon? I don't know that, but I just don't want to leave on the record that, if you could get away with it without code enforcement noticing it, then
Yes.
it's code enforcement's
No,
fault.
no, what I mean is as you do the extension, you read back to the original and see, and it's an Aldo type
Right,
extension.
right.
Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay, I can agree with that. All right, any other concerns? All right, ready to vote? All those in favor of continuing temporary 24-month 13 space entry parking lot at 444 Thurston? All those in favor? Opposed? 400. Anything else, Anna?
By a vote of 400, the motion passes in the affirmative. I guess the only other thing is now we are moving to the last Monday of the month. So we have a new schedule. It's available on our website. So this concludes the CPC deliberations for the 12/13 hearing. Our next scheduled public hearing is January 31, and it will be a virtual hearing.
Thank you,
All right, well,
everyone.
thank you all so much. Everybody have a safe
thank
holiday,
you.
and we'll see you next month. Thank you, Anna. Thank
Happy
you,
New
Kent,
Year.
Mary. Say again? Oh.
So
Happy New Year.
to everyone.
All right, take care, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.